I really started to settle into what the main character's like insecurities and anxieties are. I just realized that I guess we both need therapy.
I want you to know how I feel. Though I may say it, I just think that I might have to spell it out for you. So listen here.
Hello. This is gonna be my attempt at a NaNoWRIMO vlog. I do genuinely want to spend November actually writing and sometimes having to balance that with making content is like tough. But we're gonna try to do it. I know that I did previously say that I was like committing to NaNoWRIMO, and this is still true. I am dedicating myself to one singular book this month, but I feel like I have pretty low expectations for myself. By that I mean I'm not necessarily pushing myself to finish my book by the end of the month. I'm not setting a word count goal. The project that I'm going to be dedicating myself to this month is Project BLANCO. It is my adult sci-fi cyberpunk book. I'm basically rewriting it. This is an idea that I originally wrote back in 2020, shelved it, and then now I have returned to it, and it has become something completely different than it was originally. So that's what I've been working on for the past like 2 months-ish. Update, I'm 20,000 words into this new manuscript. Usually by this point, I tend to update these vlogs and I talk extensively about what the project is actually about and stuff like that. But I don't plan on sharing necessarily what this story is about in the near future, because I do usually feel pretty comfortable just like sharing my story ideas. Like if you watched any of my vlogs and videos, I don't feel any particular way about sharing my story ideas. I'm not a particularly private person when it comes to my writing. An idea itself is just an idea, you know what I mean? But I think with Project BLANCO, it's a very, yeah, it's kind of hard to explain. Basically, what I've realized with this book is that it's ambitious and strange. I have enjoyed having a drafting process where I have at least one project where I'm not just sharing everything about it. If you guys have been watching my vlogs, you probably know about my other two main projects. Those are my fantasy projects that I've shared so much of on this channel, but it is nice to have one serious project of mine that I can keep kind of close to myself and that I'm not sharing extensively until it's at a point where I'm like really confident in it and the idea. And there is a fine balance, I think, between writing privately and, you know, getting excited and being able to share my writing. It's a delicate balance and I'm trying to find that balance. So that is why I'm not talking extensively about BLANCO, even though this NaNoWRIMO vlog will probably be me at least documenting the experience of writing it. I did do some writing today. I've been writing, honestly, I've been having a really fun writing experience with BLANCO. It is an extremely rewarding story to write. The character voice is very fun. It is in first person. It is a frame story. I will share those two things. So there's a story within a story aspect of it. The main character is a young man in his late 20s. He's like a very typical male protagonist for me. I tend to write a lot of my male protagonists as like these extremely mild-mannered, unassuming sort of guys that run into very eccentric characters and get a little bit corrupted by them. I've said this so many times, but it's a very challenging character voice, but I am happy with a lot of what I have produced in these first 20,000 words. Okay, what day is it? It is Friday, November 4th. I wrote about 500 to 600 words. This chapter that I'm working on right now, I know for a fact that this is going to be one of the hardest chapters to write, and I've finished writing it. There was one particular scene or sequence that I knew was going to be extremely challenging, and I was able to get through it today, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. I was just kind of like in a good focused mood today. Pretty happy with the progress that I've made. I've just finished chapter 6. This book is also really unique in that it's a little bit shorter than my usual projects. Like, I don't anticipate that it's going to balloon into like a 100k manuscript like my fantasy project. Hitting like a 75k would be a nice sweet spot for me. Yeah, we're hitting act 2 and I'm really excited. Okay, it's November 8th today. We are more than a week into NaNoWRIMO, so I'm just gonna like give a little update. I had a 1400 word day, which means that I was definitely just like, I was in a fugue state. I was going through it. I was really locked in, I guess. Yeah, the draft is currently sitting at 24,000 words. I actually ended up sending the first 6 chapters to my brother to beta read. I wanted his thoughts on Act 1 because I was feeling really good about Act 1, but I kind of wanted to have like a gut check to see if I was just, I don't know, I was doubting myself. I was second guessing myself quite a bit. So he read all of it in one sitting, which I guess is a good sign. He had very positive initial feedback, which is good. There are like a few minor things that we went back and forth about in terms of the main character's personality, I guess. But yeah, we broke 24k today. The thing about my writing style, and confidently say that this is like officially my writing style because I've done this across 3 different books now, and now it's just the way that I'm like wired to write, apparently. I think I've probably mentioned this in previous videos, but I don't know if any other writer does this, but it works for me. For almost every single chapter that I write out my dialogue first. I write all my books with a plot outline, so I always know what's gonna happen in the chapter. So what I do is like, I look at my outline and I break down like all the key beats that need to happen in each scene, and then I write the dialogue out for all of the scenes and then basically fill in the blanks. And I don't even fill in the blanks chronologically. Like, I'll start at the top and then I'll like kind of go down somewhere in the middle, and then I'll like write some stuff and like fill in the dialogue there, and then I'll mark out where certain scene transitions are happening, and then I might go back to the top and then go down to the ending, just depending on like if I get ideas for certain parts of the scene. I'll just like jump around. I noticed it because I was doing a lot of that for this project, where I write chronologically in the sense that I don't skip over chapters, but I also like, when I'm writing like one chapter, I tend to like almost not write that chapter chronologically. I'm sure there are other writers who do this, but I've never like encountered another writer like IRL who does this. I don't know if this is just like some weird thing about my brain. It's been working for me, and I think what it does is it helps me stay focused so that I write a certain section of a chapter and then I write it until I get stuck, and then when I get stuck, I'll like skip down to like another section of the dialogue. Whenever I'm jumping around the chapter, I never feel like I'm writing something from scratch. I don't know, it's like this weird psychological thing. I really enjoy writing dialogue. It's probably one of my favorite things to write. I think I force myself to tweak dialogue quite a bit, and I'm very, very particular about like how characters talk and stuff like that. I just think it's one of the more rewarding experiences to like write engaging dialogue, because I really like reading dialogue, so I always get so excited to write it, and it's always like the first thing I'll write in a chapter. That's a technique that's been working for me, and I thought I would share it. I feel like I need to title this book soon. I usually don't get caught up with titles, but honestly, calling this book Project Blanco is very misleading, because Blanco is not a term that is relevant to the story anymore. Back when I was writing the very first iteration of this story 2 years ago, I nicknamed it Project Blanco because the main character's last name was Blanco. But now, with all of the changes that I've made, the main character's last name is not Blanco anymore. So it's just called Project Blanco for pretty much no reason. I don't know how many of you guys were like subscribed to my channel a year ago. I had this one NaNoWRIMO vlog where I was taking a writing break, and I was trying to see if I could like speedrun Duolingo. Fun fact, I failed, and I was recalling this now as I was like filming this vlog. And so I thought it would be funny. We tried to like do Duolingo again and to see if I could like not fail. I think I have actually already passed the section that I failed back then, but I haven't used Duolingo in at least a few months. So we're gonna see if we can do it and if I can redeem myself a year later. So Duolingo has this thing where you can like test out of an entire unit. We're gonna try to do it for Korean first, and then if I fail, we'll do French, which is what we did last year. How do you say watch? 손목시계.
손목시계.
Okay, we're not completely useless. Okay.
한국에서 칠면조는 비싸지 않아요?
What?
한국에서 칠면조는 비싸지 않아요?
We're already stuck. Surely it's not 칠면조. Why am I feeling like it's Turkey? Oh, it's not a question. Oh my god. I'm already regretting this. Okay, whatever. We're gonna cut this out of the vlog. Period. How do you say cabbage?
양배추. 옷장.
옷장. That's wardrobe. Mask? Isn't mask just mask? 용집. 가면? I've never heard that word. This is so dramatic. I have to go on living? No way. No way. How do you say 5 days?
닷새.
오토바이를 운전할 줄 압니까?
Know how to drive a motorcycle. Okay. 지갑.
지갑. 냉장고.
머리가 입보다 작습니다.
머리가 입보다 작습니다. This is like hurting my brain. Oh my god. I feel like this is, oh my god, I'm gonna jinx myself. I was about to say, why does this feel like it was easier than the one last year? But I feel like I'm jinxing myself.
아기는 자면서 미소를 지었습니다.
The baby. Okay. The doctor reads a Polish magazine.
폴락 잡지를
이거요.
읽어요. 아이들이 놀면서 흔히 싸워요. 소스를 넣은 후에 잘 저으세요. 이게 뭐야?
Our dog ate trash just one time.
쓰레기를 딱 한 번만 먹었어요.
Okay, is that it? Oh my god, that one was so easy. Okay, wait, okay. Well, at least I can say that I redeemed myself compared to last time.
You really caught my eye when I hit the town sneaking out last night. Really gives a vibe. Take it, then we kick it till the sun comes out. Make it feel alright. Come a little closer, baby, I won't bite. I do this for fun, but I wasn't really thinking you would call it love.
Okay, it is the end of Friday, November 11th. I haven't tracked my word count at all, so I don't actually know how many new words I've written this month. I have worked on the draft, I think, every single day since the start of November, so I feel like that counts for something. But yeah, I got a whole bunch of new words in today as well. I've kind of changed the structure. I originally thought that the end of chapter 6 was going to be the end of Act 1, but then I was writing chapter 7 and chapter 8, and I just felt like there was this natural pause at the end of chapter 8 that I felt was a really strong transition into an official like part 2 of the book. So I've kind of shuffled things around, and I think the draft is at like 26k right now. She's certainly growing in length, which is alarming. But yeah, I had a very good writing session today. I got through a pretty hard bump in the road. There was a certain line in the draft that I was having a lot of issue with, line that I really wanted to make it work and I didn't want to cut it, so I slept on it, and today I woke up and I fixed it, so I'm feeling good about that. But yeah, so far, like, I don't know, I feel like I'm getting nervous because I just feel like around the midpoint of NaNoWRIMO is when people start losing steam and motivation, and traditionally, historically, mid-November is when I start losing my marbles. Yeah, it's interesting because I am just so enjoying writing this main character. I think because he's such an introspective person, I feel like unintentionally it's becoming a self-insert story, which is concerning. Okay, happy Saturday. I've decided I'm gonna go home today, like to my parents' house. I'm gonna try to get some writing done this weekend. I actually put out a poll the other day because I'm really curious how everyone else is faring. Looking at this last stat, more than half of people who answered the poll said that it could be going way better. I hope you guys find some motivation. Pretty much finish up chapter 7, and chapter 8 is like 80% written. I just have some gaps that I need to fill out, but I'm actually really happy with the way that chapter 7 and 8 have turned out. I feel like I always go into my draft, and especially when I'm starting a new chapter, I feel like I always go into it feeling kind of like unsure about myself, and I'm always like trying to get the flow of the scene, and it can be hard to kind of like find out the right sequencing of scenes, because even though I have an outline, I'm not always like terribly detailed in my outline. I always write down like ideas for scenes, and I write down what I need, what kind of like information I need to convey and what needs to be accomplished, but I might not brainstorm the actual scene or the context. So it can take some time for me to like figure out the flow of things in that way. But yeah, looking back on chapter 7 and 8, I'm like really happy with it. I feel like whenever I talk about BLANCO, I always talk about how much it like is pushing me as a writer, and I really feel that like the further I get into the draft, the more comfortable I feel really digging into this main character and all of the challenges that he presents. And I know the other day I was basically talking about like how I feel like he just like unknowingly became a self-insert character, and I feel like there are some writers who would make the argument that like every protagonist is inevitably going to be a self-insert character in some way, but I don't think that's necessarily true, because I think when I look back on like all my other main characters from the last like 2-3 years, I've always had this tendency to write main characters who are very different from me. I can't think of a main character that I've written like this before. And when I think about Anna and Felix, Anna's very stubborn and snobby and a little bit like uptight. I feel like the main character of BLANCO, I was trying to think a lot about why I feel like he's turned into such a self-insert. What it comes down to is that it feels like he's very much constantly on the fringes of every social interaction that he's in. He's the kind of introverted person that can handle himself really well in extroverted settings, not because it comes naturally to him, but because he has taught himself how to survive in a certain more eccentric social circles. He constantly like finds himself in these like crazy situations, and so he's like learned to adapt to them, but it's not something that he particularly enjoys. There were quite a few scenes that I was writing where I started reflecting on this concept of loneliness, or I was reflecting via him, and what it feels like to feel not entirely yourself when you're in these like very highly sociable, overstimulating environment. There was an excerpt of the draft that I actually shared on Twitter a few weeks ago. It's a paragraph that happens at the end of chapter 4. When I wrote it, I realized that it was essentially the thesis statement of the chapter, and it's also kind of the thesis statement of the character for that first half of the book. This character finds himself having a encounter with not the love interest of the story, but a person, I guess like one romantic encounter of multiple. The main character, who is very passive, is asked, you know, what do you like? Do you have any desires? It was a difficult chapter. And I think when I had finally arrived at that paragraph, when I finally realized that that was the sentiment that I needed to convey, I think a lot of things really fell into place for me. And I really started to settle into what the main character's like insecurities and anxieties are. I just realized that I guess we both need therapy.
It really was so pretty looking into the glimpse, but it gets a lot better when it doesn't exist. So count your sheep, do your dream, golden shade.
Today is November 14th, third week of Nano. We're officially halfway through the month. I basically got to the end of Act 1 of this book, and I'm feeling overall like really good about the act. Yesterday I wrote about 1,300 words. I finished chapter 8. I've started chapter 9, which is officially Act 2, and Act 2 is always like a really scary part of any book to start writing, because that's kind of where you have to start actually unpacking and unraveling the mysteries in your story. And historically, I've always been really I've always had the most fun writing the first act of my books, because I love doing the setup. I love writing that like initial hook. And so I think a true test for how solid this story is, it's gonna be how well can I execute Act 2. I don't think that I'm going to do another NaNoWRIMO vlog. I do want to like focus on my writing this month, as I've said. I will keep you guys updated in a future vlog, or most likely on Twitter or Instagram, because it's just kind of easier for me to update that way. But I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me on this NaNoWRIMO vlog. I would love to know how you guys are doing. How are we feeling? It's the 3rd week. If you missed it, I had the lovely honor of doing a video over on the official NaNoWRIMO YouTube channel. We'll link to that if you haven't seen it already. That's it. Thanks for watching. I hope all your projects are going well, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hold the phone one sec, not too fast, you know.